Something a little bit different for Joe's Garage. This is actually a little technology episode. So I decided to pick up this, I don't know how to pronounce it, Bkouen mini PC, portable designs. This is one of those like little tiny PC things. Got this from Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. This is a model AK7 Pro, and it's, you know, computer in a little box. I bought this for a very specific reason. I realize that the reason I bought it may not be the reason you bought it, so I'll give you kind of a start to finish end user experience with this. It's very inexpensive. I think it was maybe 180 bucks, 170 bucks. I think it has, just from memory, a Celeron N5105 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, and I think a 250 gig solid state drive. So I'm using this to run, or I'm hoping to use it to run, an NVR, or network video recorder system that I want to run a product called Frigate or Frigate. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. That product can be used to monitor one or more camera streams and do object detection. So for example, if you have a camera on a driveway, you can detect when a person crosses or a car crosses and so on. So the computer I have running that right now is not powerful enough, so I decided to buy this and give it a try. So let's unbox it and see what we got. And hopefully this reflection will be gone soon once this plastic wrap is done. I'm not normally a big believer in unboxing videos, but I'll give you guys the full experience today. Dun dun dun. This does have some gravity to it. It's not the lightest machine in the world. It's pretty tiny though, there's not much to it. This is pretty light. I guess the weight's all in the power adapter. There's the computer. Not much to it, as you can see. So obviously the first time we buy anything, the first thing we do is take it apart, so we got to get working on that. But let's just look at the outside. So we have our DC power input right here. Looks like a USB 2, 2 HDMI ports, an RJ45 LAN port, and perhaps a microphone. And then on the side, or I guess maybe this is the front because that's probably the power button, we have 2 USB 3s and another USB 2 port. Alright, let's get her apart. Seeing no obvious way to take it apart, whipped out this user manual. Not a whole lot in here. Got a couple different languages, which is always nice. I'm sure everybody else is bilingual or trilingual like me. No, I'm just kidding. Talks about what we just went over: mounting, connecting to Wi-Fi, entering the BIOS settings. Don't see anything here about disassembly. Interesting. It does include, I guess this is a mount, a S mount of some kind. Our power adapter, some mounting screws, and an HDMI cable. So, disassembly, I'm just feeling around. I don't feel any fasteners, but I do feel like a hollow portion under these feet. So I'm guessing there's fasteners under these feet. Let's take the feet off and see what we see under there. Let's try one. I think this will stick. Yeah, there's some fasteners under there. Little Phillips head. I think this voids the warranty. Wait, what warranty? So you gotta wonder though. So these things, this is Bkouen, whatever that brand name is. So that, I mean, we can't think that all these companies all make these things, right? There's a lot, I probably should have mentioned, there's a lot of different computers that look very much similar to this one available for sale. They don't all make these things, right? So you gotta wonder who actually makes this stuff. Maybe we'll find that out through the course of our non-destructive engineering here. These screws are not really that long. Is there anything under here? Don't feel anything. I think I may have uncovered the disassembly secret. So I'm just putting these screws back in. just ever so slightly. When you push down on them, the cover moves. So I'm guessing this top cover comes off somehow. I don't know if you can see that, but it's sliding out ever so slightly. I'm just going to work at this for a little bit. Just putting the screws in, pushing down on them, and just pushing that top cover off. Scratch that. I'm actually using a really fine micro screwdriver, and I'm pushing that way. Hopefully I didn't break anything. Still seems like there's something attached to the cover. Make sure it isn't a cable, and it is. Awesome. First look at the insides. Maybe that's the Wi-Fi antenna? Not really sure. Let's see if I can disconnect that. Okay, just slid it out of the way. So just to kind of go over some of the components that I see. Here we have a Future Path 256 gigabyte solid state drive. And let's see what else. We got our CPU that's very likely under here. Somewhere under this area here. We have a SATA connector right there, presumably for another drive, but I don't see any place to mount one. This looks like a very small Wi-Fi card, maybe? Sorry about that. Don't you just love it? Anybody can just ring your doorbell anytime you want. Where were we? So yeah, we have our M2 solid state drive, 256 gigs. We have down here a really tiny looking Wi-Fi card. I've never seen one that small. Not sure what form factor that is. We have our CPU under here, presumably. Our SATA power connector. I don't see any way to expand this board. It's kind of unfortunate. I don't see like a SODIMM slot where you can plug in an extra memory module. I don't think it's going to be an issue for me, but it's unfortunate nonetheless. I also don't see any brand names other than on the NVMe card. Let's see if we can take that bad boy out. Get a look under it. Apologies for the look at my hand. So let's take this thing out. And what do we see under here? Oh boy, I don't have my glasses on. Again, still no markings. It is kind of cool they give you this SATA port. So if you need to, say, ditch the case, you can always 3D print something, right? And add a second drive, you could. I'm going to guess the RAM is probably this chip you see down here. Down in that area right there. So yeah, not a whole lot of room to expand anything, but again, for what do you expect for a computer at this price point? Pretty cool. Give you guys just kind of an overall view of the board, in case you're looking for anything. Don't expect to see many markings though. Not a lot here. Might be something on the underside. I guess we could pull the board and look. Why not, right? What do we got to lose? Let me do that. Okay, there's just 4 screws that held the board in. This is what the underside of it looks like. This looks like, where's my pointer? I'm no expert, so you guys feel free to keep me honest. Here's some kind of label, obviously. G7KA1 and star or T. I also don't have my glasses on. Here's another label here, GK7P5105 or 5105. It's probably the processor. Some print that's too small to read. This, is that programming there? Looks like 6 ports. Or 6 maybe like test points or vias. There's another label down here that was covering up this text here. It looks like it just has a manufacture date. It looks like maybe June of 04. Sorry, you're out of view right down there. This label is sitting right there. Is that anything useful? It's a 2D barcode. Oh, contact us. Okay. What does that actually say? Looks like, yeah, I'm not going to attempt to read that. Man, I really need glasses. You know, in this corner of the board, you can see this little whatever that is, some kind of bodge wire. Looks like it's covered in epoxy, so I'm guessing there's a flaw in the board design and they use that to fix it. It's kind of disappointing. And come on, you get to a design this far and yeah. It's 175 bucks, right? You get what you pay for. But overall, I mean, the build quality does not seem all that great, but at this price point, what do I expect? If there's any other call outs anybody would like to make while looking at this, certainly go ahead and do that. What does it say? MNPC service at 163.com. I don't know. Alright, let me put her back together. Okay, got everything put back together. So in summary, not upgradable really at all. The RAM is fixed at 8 gigabytes, at least on this model. Other models may be fixed as well. The SSD, or the hard drive, quote unquote, that is upgradable, so you can just pop out another one of these and put a new one in. Processor is very likely to be soldered on, so don't expect much out of there. That's pretty typical in this class, though. You do have the battery over here. Wi-Fi card, it might be socketed, but that's, again, I've never seen one in this tiny little format there, so I'm not sure what the deal with that is. So let's hook it up, give it some power, and see what it does. It does come with this power supply, 30 watts. Wow. 12 volts, 2.5 amps. So pretty standard power supply. Let's see what happens. I'm going to leave the case open for now, and just so we can see what's going on inside. Probably nothing too interesting, but let's do it anyway. Alright, we're all plugged in. Let's power up and let the smoke out. Something's happening. Oh, you got a picture on the screen. Just a moment. Seems silent. There's a little status light on the, turn the light off so you can see a little better. There's a status light on the hard drive right there. I don't know if you could see that flashing. How many moments they're talking about. So I'm guessing this is going to load Windows 11, but we'll see. That certainly does not look like Windows 10. Hello. Alright, so it does come with an operating system. That's kind of nice, right? Let's go and click English. That's fine, yes. Yeah. No, we don't want a second keyboard. Skip. I'll spare you guys this part. Still booting up, but I just wanted to call it that the fan does seem to be turning on and off on demand. As the processor gets warmer, it turns on. You can tell by the heat that the processor is right under here. That's kind of cool. Kind of what you'd expect, but again, that's pretty phenomenal for this price point to have that type of control. That's kind of where we're at right now. It is taking a while. Oh, we're almost there. Oh, finally. Okay, so it is Windows 11. Let's see what they give you by default. So it looks like, forgive me, I'm still kind of feeling my way through Windows 11. Maybe about, there we go. It's a Windows 11 Pro license, not bad. And from a hardware perspective, again, it's not to really be a surprise. So the processor is a Celeron N5105. It's what we expected. Network adapters, we got one of those crappy Realtek. We got Realtek on both the Wi-Fi and wired. That's not so hot, but whatever. Intel UHD graphics, about what we expect. Let's pop under here. That's kind of a shame. All right, so yeah, I guess not too many surprises other than the fact that it's unfortunate we have a Realtek Wi-Fi and Ethernet chip. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not horrible, but I'd much prefer to see Intel hardware here. But again, it's a price point, right? That's right. This is an older version. To get the task manager, you have to open it here, I think, right? So yeah, there's our 4 CPU cores, our 8 gigs of memory, and our disk. What else do we want to do? I mean, I'm ultimately not going to keep Windows on here because the software that I'm going to run runs on Docker container and Linux. But let's go into the BIOS setup and see what we see there. It's usually fun, right? So far, it seems like a nice machine. Seems reasonably speedy. You know, it's not an i7 or anything, but let's see if the normal BIOS entry tricks work. I'm going to try escape F1, delete. Those are the usual ones. Oh, there we go. That's pretty easy. So this is, this looks like your typical AMI BIOS from, you know, like the 90s style, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. So okay, so it's got a pretty recent build date. I'm guessing it's February 11th, not November 2nd. Now, one issue you're going to run into here is, I never heard of this vendor. What was it again? Bkouen. So getting BIOS updates is probably going to be impossible. But again, that's just something you have to accept at this price point, right? So if there's ever like another Spectre or meltdown type of CPU bug, the odds of you getting security updates or microcode updates from, at least from the motherboard vendor, are probably slim to none. A lot of adjustability options though, it's not so bad. Again, let's think about the PowerPoint, right? Or price point, not PowerPoint, price point. Okay, so it looks like we have some high quality memory, SK Hynix. It's a pretty good brand. We got 2 LPDDRs. It looks like populated and enabled slot. Interesting, so it looks like this supports 2 slots, and they're both populated? Or wait, slot 0, slot 1, slot 0, okay, I don't know, I'm not sure. Bottom line is we have 8 gigs of RAM. It's probably more than we're going to need for what I bought it for. Alright, so yeah, not a whole lot to see here, but it does work. Now I guess the next step is going to be to boot this bad boy off of a USB and install Ubuntu. Yeah. Alright, before I wipe out the OS, I am going to Just close this bad boy up. Anybody have any more questions before I close this up? I feel like I covered everything. We got our processor under here, battery. We got a little status light. I should mention that the case is actually feels like it's aluminum, which is kind of nice. It's very rigid. We got our 256 gig solid state drive. We have a SATA expansion port there. Guessing that might be a power header for it right there, that white connector. But yeah, let's button her back up. One very strange thing that I noticed is as long as there's a USB drive, at least the one that I have, so I have a Samsung, I think it's a 32 gig inserted here, along with a Wi-Fi dongle for my keyboard and mouse. And as long as I have that thumb drive plugged in, keyboard's unresponsive, but as soon as I plug it in, watch this. I'm sorry, as soon as I unplug the USB drive, everything wakes up. Why is that? Yes, I know. It's because the thing only costs 160, 170 bucks. Let's try a USB port on this side. See if it behaves any differently. Okay, so there we're fine. So it seems like it's only when it's plugged into that USB 3 port, which is kind of strange. Again, good luck getting that bug fixed. Let's save changes and exit, yes. Let's get back into our BIOS after it comes back to life. I turned off quiet boot too, so maybe we'll see something more useful on the screen. There we go. Very briefly. Okay, got back into the BIOS with a flash drive plugged in. I set the boot order to come from the flash drive first before Windows so that we can actually boot off of it. So we're going to save changes. Let's do this. There we go. Now we're going to boot Ubuntu. This might take a while. Okay, I got Ubuntu 22.04 LTS running in try Ubuntu mode, and there was no Wi-Fi adapter found. So looking a little bit further into it, looks like we got an RTL 8821CE. Let's see if anything happened during boot up that may have contributed to that. Well, here we go. This is our Wi-Fi deck. We got some error messages. RFE 6 isn't supported, whatever that means. Failed to set up chip eFuse info, failed to set up chip info. So yeah, guessing that the Wi-Fi is not going to work out of the box. Let me get a Wi-Fi dongle that I have laying around, USB Wi-Fi, and see if that gets us further along. The question is, where is it? I won't bore you guys with that. Dun dun dun, to the rescue. So let's stick this in one of the USB 3 ports and see what happens, because that was a lot of fun before. So it's got to go like that. Mouse is still working, keyboard's still working. So maybe that was a Windows problem, or maybe it was a problem with the yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to guess. So it looks like it found it. I'm not seeing any evidence that it was... Why are we not still getting Wi-Fi networks though? Weird. Alright, I think I'm just going to plug in a cable. The subject of this video is not getting Wi-Fi networks working in Linux, so we'll plug in a cable and we'll go from there. Hopefully that works. I do kind of recognize the chip, the gigabit Ethernet chip. This is kind of the reason why I was telling you before I'm not a big fan of Realtek's, because you just have these weird issues with them, you know? I think I'm going to try next is try downloading and installing any updates now we got our Ethernet cable plugged in and see if that fixes our Wi-Fi problem. We are downloading. I'd also like to do a stress test to see how this thing handles running at like 100% CPU for hours on end. So I'm going to see if I can find like a stress testing package. Yeah, that plan backfired. I ran out of disk space because I forgot that I was updating the live USB stick. So I'm gonna abandon that plan of trying to install updates. We'll deal with that later. So for now, I'm gonna run a stress test on the system. I'm gonna run a CPU temperature monitor on the system just to make sure it's thermally capable of running at high CPU load, because a lot of the work that I need to do is going to require it to be processing video data, live video streams, and at least for now, that's all going to be done by the CPU on this device. So let's wait for Ubuntu to boot back up and we'll get that going. Another thing to consider when looking at these devices is that, yeah, this thing costs 175 bucks. It is a capable computer, but for about the same amount of money, you can go onto eBay. You can get like one of these, not this exact model, but something that is comparable in size to this. But this is a Lenovo tiny PC. You can pick up like, this is a P360, but you can pick up an older like M720Q, M920Q, M710Q. You can pick those up for between 150 and 220 on eBay. You'll probably get the same horsepower out of the box, if not more, but it'll be upgradable. You can change the Wi-Fi card. You can have multiple storage devices. The processor is socketed. So if you're looking for something to use on a daily basis and you're not as concerned about power usage, then that might be a better deal than, say, one of these Bkouen PCs where you have almost no upgradability. The big sell, in my opinion, on this Bkouen is you get a lot of processing power on a small thermal and power footprint. That this is rated to, I think, about 10 watts, whereas these Lenovo tiny PCs are about 35. So it's all about what you get per watt. So I'm just going to install the stress and sensor packages. And of course they can't be found. Why would they not be found? Oh, I'm on the network. What's the problem? I've used these packages before. I'll tell you, this is one of the things that drives me crazy about Ubuntu and perhaps some other Linux distributions. What worked in an old distribution, they change stuff constantly. You know, you get used to one network adapter naming convention, they go and change it. You get used to one network manager, yeah, they go and change it. You get used to one package name, they remove it, they replace it. No way for you to find what the new package is, if it even exists, without doing some Google searching. So that gets me frustrated. Then of course you have different package managers. So yeah, you have apt-get, you have snap, and you have to know which one to use. So this is stress NG. No stress workers invoked. All right, so let me read the documentation here about stress NG for a moment and see if I can figure out how this thing works. All right, I found a command to run. I'm running, what was it? Stress NG -CPU 0 -CPU method all -T1 hour. And the documentation says that example will run CPU stressors and all online CPUs working through all available CPU stressors for 1 hour. Should be a pretty good overall stress test. So let's see how hot this thing gets. I have a feeling I'm not having much luck finding these packages because they're not available for install on live USB. Maybe one of these package sources that I need is not set up here. So I think we'll just forego that for the moment. I have had this running, the stress test running for a while. Load average is above 5, and anything that's 4 or more would be considered pretty heavy load. Generally, the way the load averages work on Linux systems, or any Unix or Linux system, is the analogy I give people is think of a shopping cart checkout aisle, or checkout area of a I can't talk. Reboot. All right, think of the checkout area of a supermarket, right? So you have one or more cashiers that are able to check out customers. And think of the cashiers as CPU cores. The load average could be thought of as the number of people waiting in the queue to be checked out. So if you have 4 CPU cores, a load average of 4 means that you have 4 people being checked out, so each core would be saturated in that case. A load average above 4 would mean that there's a person, or a process in this case, that's waiting to be served. So here you see a load average of 4.41, so the CPU is a little bit behind, which is kind of what we would expect on a stress test. Okay, it's been a while longer. The stress test has been running. This thing is, it's warm, but it's not hot. You know, it's I don't know, it might be like that part. The button was warm there. No, maybe not. It's probably like maybe 95 degrees or so, 90, 95 degrees. Just, you know, back of the hand temperature. I'm not getting the temperature gun for this. It does not feel like it's overheating, which is my concern. So I think I'm going to go ahead and install Ubuntu in here and stop running off the live CD, and then we'll start actually using this thing. Okay, so I got Ubuntu installed on our little box here. And I'm also running a stress test. And after I installed Ubuntu, the Wi-Fi magically started working. So I think it was just a characteristic of the live USB, where it just wouldn't install the right driver. Maybe the system was a bit out of date. But after I installed everything onto the internal solid-state drive and did a package update, Wi-Fi is now working fine. So problem solved. Anyway, so you can see our CPU usage is pegged pretty high up here. And our load average, if you see up here, is 15. So back to our grocery store checkout analogy, you have 4 people running the register, but 15 plus people in line. And you can see down here, maybe, I'm keeping an eye on the CPU temps. So we're right around like 71 to 73. I haven't seen it run any higher than that, which is pretty good. The system is barely audible. I mean, I can hear it. I can hear the fan screaming, but it's not anywhere near as loud as, say, like one of those Lenovo Tiny PCs under a similar load. I would do a power draw test, but unfortunately my my kilowatt meter is down for the count. Yeah, had a failed component on board, and that component's out of stock. So unfortunately, I can't do a power draw. Apologies for that. But anyway, I'll let this run for a little while longer, then probably install Frigate or Frigate or however you pronounce it, and maybe give you guys a preview of what I was looking to accomplish with this little box. And again, in case it wasn't crystal clear before, the reason why I'm doing this stress test is because this box is going to be analyzing live video feeds from, I think, 5 IP cameras. It's going to need to decompress that video and run machine learning algorithms against it to do object detection, like detect people, detect cars, and so on. It's very computationally intensive. I would eventually like to get one of those AI accelerators from Google. It's called the Coral. Plugs in via a USB port, but unfortunately, again, because of the electronics shortage, I think there's like almost a 1-year lead time on that thing. So I'm going to be using CPU detection for quite some time. And again, like I said, that's computationally intensive. So that's why I'm doing all this. All right, it's a couple days later, and I've got the that little mini PC installed in a more like permanent fashion. Got it wired into my network, and I got the application that I'm using to monitor my cameras installed. And here you can see a feed from the 6 cameras I have hooked up right now. So this is a view of my front door for my front doorbell. This is a view from one side of my garage, a view from the other side of my garage, a view from my front door looking out onto the driveway inside Joe's garage. And this is just by the mango tree. If you guys follow the channel, you see I did a video on mango theft a couple of years ago. This is the camera that I did that footage from. So monitoring all 6 of these IP cameras using hardware acceleration, you can see that the load average here, you know, I just walked outside for a demonstration, so it was doing some video encoding, but the 5-minute load average is 3.12. I think it's 15 and then an hour. I don't know, I can't remember the numbers, but remember the analogy. The number of CPU cores here is 4, so as long as our number is below 4, we should be okay. And we're right on the edge, but again, we're monitoring 6 cameras. That's not too bad. And it does work. So looking at the events, just for demonstration purposes, I did go and walk outside, and it detected me, a person. Walked by another camera. There's me walking outside again. So we're not getting videos of trees blowing in the wind here. We're getting views of videos of actual objects of interest, in this case people. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this NVR software. If anybody's really curious about it, I can go into some more detail of how it works. But this is how I got it working on a fairly low-cost setup. Fairly low power, too. It doesn't consume a lot of power. Again, I don't have my kilowatt working. It's in pieces right now. But the processor is a 10 TDP, what is it, TDP thermal design power. So it's a 10-watt processor. So it shouldn't be consuming a whole lot of current. So anyway, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe. Stay safe. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll leave a link to that little mini PC if anybody wants to pick one up from Amazon in the description. Thanks. Take care. Bye.